If I could describe Kinsey, I would say that she was genuine, she was truthful, she was so God-loving, she was very, very driven, very determined with everything she did.
Most distinct thing about Kinsey?
I'd really have to say the God-given joy she had.
Everyone should know how funny Kinsey was and how her positivity could light up a room and make everyone laugh.
Favorite thing about Kinsey Wright?
Her eyes. And her laugh.
Okay, that's a good one. Sorry.
Funny story, I knew better. But I moved this team like probably a year ago, like in May. And the first few practices, I didn't really know anyone. I probably had like 2 friends that I already knew before going to the team. But she would just come behind me and like give me a huge bear hug. And she'd be like, "Guess who this is?" And like kind of pick me up. And I was like, I don't know who it is. She's like, "It's Kinsey, duh." And I just thought it was really funny that she was so welcoming to me and so kind when she barely even knew me.
My favorite thing about Kinsey was definitely her laugh. She had the funniest laugh ever, and it was so contagious and it was so loud, but it was always so genuine, and she just carried it wherever she went. She was always laughing. Just Don't even hear. Ha ha ha. Don't even hear. Ha ha ha.
We're trying to do this. Me, you sit on my back. Get up. Come on, Bradley. Ah! Fail number 1. Let's try it again.
One unique thing that I loved about Kinsey was how comfortable she was in her own skin. And that went with anything. Any experience that we had with her was so genuine and so real because that was what she felt comfortable doing, and it really rubbed off on everyone around her, especially me, because, you know, if she was gonna do something different, I'd feel like, yeah, you know, it's okay. Like, if I do something different too, like, I don't have to always go with the crowd or go with the flow. I can just do what I want to do if I want to do what I want to do. And it just made every experience with her feel so homey because it was just so real. Everything about her was just real and truthful and amazing, and I absolutely loved it about her.
So she was amazingly strong.
Yeah.
That wasn't the hard part about rehabbing her. The hard part about rehabbing her was, you know, she'd give you some attitude here and there because obviously rehabbing, especially an ACL, especially a young ACL, is a 9-month normally process. And so when you have someone, she worked with Omar for the first couple months, but she did so good early, she came over to performance at 8 weeks, and sometimes people would come over till 12 or 16 weeks. So I basically had her from, 2 months out to the time that she stopped coming in. But so it gets a little redundant. It gets a little people having to do it over and over. So she started to get a little spicy at moments, but she always worked hard, and that was the great thing about her. You tell her what to do, she may chirp at you a little bit, but she was always going to do everything you asked and work hard for you.
Yeah. And I've heard a famous story from her mother about how you said she did everything, but she did it with attitude.
Yes, exactly. But that's what made her fun.
She went through some hard things, especially with her injury. And even though she couldn't play, she'd always support us and cheer us on. And she was always so positive, even through it all.
Everyone should know that Kinsey really loved and cherished her family. She loved being in the presence of them. She told us all the time. Every time, a new practice, a new story.
Something that made Kinsey unique was definitely her eyes. She had like purple eyes, and I would always just look at them because they were so pretty. But she'd always tell me they were blue, like dark blue. They were definitely purple. And I don't know, I've never seen anybody with like eyes that color, and I love them.
Something that made Kinsey unique was her booming personality. Now she never cared what anyone thought of her. Something silly and dumb me and Kinsey did, like, when we were at both teams, we played on Blitz and WSA. I'm sorry, coaches, but every time we would be in a circle talking and, like, y'all would say something, like, out of pocket or, like, dumb or, like, just, like, what? Me and Kinsey would make eye contact and just die of silent laughter. It was so funny. I miss it so bad.
Probably the funniest thing that happened between me and Kinsey was at this one practice. I think it was at the Sports Armory, that place. And I can do a rainbow, okay? Like sometimes, not all the time. But she thought it'd be a good idea for me to try to rainbow over her. So I did. Like, I backed up and I started dribbling at her. And I was going a little too fast, and I rainbowed. And it went over my head and her head, so I did it. But I was going way too fast, and I ran into her so hard. She, like, fell back onto the ground. Felt so bad. She was about to cry. She didn't, though. And she was, like, laughing, but you could tell she was, like, pretty mad about it. And I, like, helped her up, and she started kicking me because she was so mad. And I felt so bad. Anyways, after, like, the whole practice after, she would not leave me alone about it. And yeah, that was probably the funniest memory I have with her.
Last one. Most ridiculous, silly, or dumb thing that you ever saw Kinsey do or did with her.
I remember training her, and her dad came behind the counter and like filmed her, and she got really flustered. And then afterwards, after he had left, she was making a box and like dropped one of the drizzles on top of the whole box and was like, oh no, what do I do? And it was like her first shift, but she was able to like really quickly think on her toes and kind of like adjust it, make more donuts, and kind of get through that situation. But it was really funny because you could tell that like it was just a very stressful first day, but she made the best of it, and it was pretty funny. So
And where were we? Dallas? And because I scored the goal. Or Kinsey, yeah, I scored the goal because Kinsey punted it right in my leg. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and you scored an own goal. But we came back and won, and that game was just
won, but it was good. It was fun. It was fun.
Were you mad at her?
No, she was just trying to clear it. I was just not stopping.
Oh, the clearance, not a punch.
I would say I've got to see her in two lights. I got to see her in and when I say this, I don't mean it in a bad way. I got to see the anger side of her because she just wanted to play, and it's like every kid, you know. So I got to deal with her being frustrated because she just wanted to get back and play, and me having to be the bad guy that was like just kind of like me and you both were the bad guys, and calm down. And then you got that infectious smile and happiness. I got both sides of her, and I feel like sometimes maybe people don't get to see both sides, and I got to see a little bit of both, and ACL rehab is so long and hard that it's taxing on people, and I would say that some people towards the end are, maybe they don't come in as much, or they start being late, or they miss days, things like that. And, all I remember was that she was here every time. And she was trying to get better because she just loved playing.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories is what I've termed the tale of the two-goal hero. And it's Kinsey that actually scores the goals, in a practice scrimmage. Imagine that, the goalie smashing in the ball. But she did. So the setting is that the 08s, Kinsey's team, they're old, they're good. They have a practice that overlaps in time by a little bit with a younger team. And so every now and then I would just have the older kids scrimmage for fun. The younger kids, it's a little warm up for the older ones, it's fun for the younger ones. And so that's happening. And this is one of Kinsey's very last practices. This is one of her practices back after she had worked so hard to rehab her ACL. And for the older kids, the scrimmage is just a hot mess. Like, nothing is going well. The score is stuck. And I'm watching this, and little by little, the pot is beginning to boil, and I want the 08s to just switch on. And as this inside of me is just building, finally, eventually, Kinsey gets, and she just smashes the ball in the back of the net, right foot, 1-0. And oh my God, you should have seen the joy in her face. She's jumping up and down. She's the happiest person on earth in that moment. And then 30 seconds later, cross comes in from the right, tap in, 2-0, goal. It's Kinsey again. So there's the goalkeeper out on the field, scoring 2 goals. And I just remember thinking that night that Kinsey was the savior of that team, that she stood in the gap for that group. And it was such a emotionally charged moment, because there had been tension before then. Kinsey, as soccer players sometimes do, was debating should she play here or there. And it was basically also that night that she decided to stick with that team. And the joy that she got with that group, the amount of happiness that she had scoring with them and for them, I will never forget it.
If someone was going to be more like Kinsey, what would they do?
I think to have a kinder attitude towards the people around them. I never saw her have any judgment towards anybody. If a mean customer came in, she'd just kind of she wouldn't let it affect her. She would just kind of roll it away and put it behind her, and just be like, oh, I bet that person's having a rough day. I'm sure that's not who they really are, and just treat them with kindness even when they maybe weren't treating her with that back.
It says we love because he loved first. I would say you could be a lot like Kinsey by showing someone you love them or just telling them that you love them. I love you goes a long ways. Kinsey loved really hard. She told us she loved us all the time. And it was real. It was genuine. She meant it.
If you were to ask me how to be more like Kinsey, I tell them to love like Kinsey.
Kinsey Wright was loved even before she entered this world. She's beloved all the more now that she's left it. She was a blessing to all who knew her through soccer or through any other part of life. And as we mark her exit from this world, we're committed to holding true to the message she left with us. May your light shine forever.